When a forgotten vault, deep within Kensington Palace, is opened after years of secrecy, royal staff stumble upon a chilling revelation. A handwritten letter from Princess Diana herself with instructions regarding her prized pearl set. What happens next sends shockwaves through royal circles and straight into Meghan's heart. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The vault had not been touched in decades, a relic from another time. Dust blanketed the mahogany boxes and velvet-lined drawers as gloved hands carefully worked through decades of personal items many presumed lost forever. What no one expected, however, was the envelope with Princess Diana's signature. Nestled beneath silk scarves and pressed roses, it was addressed in her unmistakable cursive, sealed with lavender wax. Inside, a letter dated just weeks before the Paris crash carried the weight of a mother's deepest reflections and her final wishes. Within it, she spoke with poetic clarity about her treasured pearl set, describing it as the soul of her feminine legacy. The pearls weren't just jewels. They were memory, power, and protection. And she was specific. They were to go only to Catherine, whom she described as the embodiment of resilience and quiet strength. The language left no ambiguity. There was no mention of alternate recipients, no room for interpretation. Meghan Markle's name was nowhere to be found, and that in itself became a storm waiting to detonate. Meghan, according to close sources, had no knowledge the letter existed. She had seen the pearl set only once locked away under tight security and had assumed, as did many, that they had been lost or withheld by palace tradition. But the truth was far more personal and far more cutting. The press caught the scent within hours. Tabloids lit up with headlines about Diana's lost letter and her final silent gesture. The whispers became roars. Why had Meghan been excluded? Was it a reflection of Diana's intuition, or something far more orchestrated by those still guarding the gates of tradition? As the news travelled from archival offices to royal staff meetings, and then to the ears of Meghan herself, the walls of silence began to close in. For Meghan, it wasn't just the pearls. It was the implication that even in memory, she remained on the outside. That even in death, Diana had chosen another. The symbolism was too sharp to ignore, too painful to rationalize. But what truly shattered Meghan wasn't the letter itself, it was who revealed it. And when, at a private Sussex dinner in Montecito, Prince Harry's casual remark drops like a bomb. With one sentence, he confirms what Meghan had feared all along: his mother had made her choice years ago. And it wasn't her. The evening had been quiet, almost deceptively so. The long hours of Netflix interviews and behind-the-scenes negotiations had left the couple drained, clinging to the comfort of routine. A simple meal, candles, silence. But beneath that silence, Meghan's mind was racing. Ever since the news of Diana's letter had broken, she had felt something unraveling, something cold, sharp, and undeniable. It wasn't just the world turning against her again, it was something more personal, something that cut deeper. She needed to know the truth, not from headlines, not from royal aides, but from the only person left who might hold it: her husband. And when she asked the question quietly, almost as if hoping he'd change the subject, he didn't. Harry didn't flinch. He didn't look away. But the words he uttered were like ash falling between them. "Mum wanted Kate to have the pearls," he said, voice low, steady. "She told me that once, before William even proposed." In that instant, the air shifted. Meghan sat frozen, the weight of betrayal pressing against her ribs. It wasn't about the jewelry, it never had been. It was about knowing that Diana, the woman she'd long imagined would have stood by her, had made a decision long before Meghan ever entered the picture. It wasn't silence that followed, it was something far more deafening. Meghan rose, not in anger but in disbelief, and quietly walked away from the table. Harry sat alone, his head bowed. He hadn't meant to say it, at least not like that. He had held on to that memory for years, perhaps hoping it would fade, or that it wouldn't matter. But when the letter was found, he knew he couldn't keep it buried. He remembered the moment vividly, Diana sitting with him in the garden, her hand on his, speaking of the woman she believed would walk beside the future king. At the time, it seemed like a distant dream, but now it felt like a prophecy. He regretted telling Meghan, not because it wasn't true, but because the truth had finally punctured the last thread of comfort between them. There were whispers even then, memories of how Diana had quietly taken to Kate during those early encounters, how she'd once described her as gentle but unshakable. Meghan had heard those stories too. She had smiled through them, but now they returned like ghosts, each one feeding the ache that she would never truly be part of that sacred legacy. And yet, as the couple faced this rift in Montecito, far across the Atlantic inside the gilded walls of the very institution they had abandoned, a different kind of storm was beginning to rise, one that would make private heartbreak look like only the beginning. As tension simmers in California, across the Atlantic, a different storm is brewing inside palace walls. The public. They see the poised Princess of Wales, but behind closed doors, Kate wept. Not from triumph, but the heavy honor of Diana's most personal treasure. For years she'd wondered why the pearls had vanished. Now she knew. It had been a morning like any other in Windsor meetings, briefings, the usual choreography of royal duty, until a message from the royal archivist arrived. There was no fanfare, no ceremonial delivery, just a quiet envelope and a note that read, "Her wishes have resurfaced." Kate's hands trembled as she unfolded the letter. Inside was Diana's unmistakable script, fading but powerful. A message written from a place of profound foresight and raw emotion. It spoke of legacy, of vulnerability, and of quiet strength. And then the line that made Kate stop breathing, "You remind me of grace under fire." Those 6 words echoed in her chest like a thunderclap. Diana had seen something in her even then, long before the public ever knew who she truly was. The memories came rushing back. There had been one moment, long buried and never spoken of, a private afternoon when Diana had pulled Kate aside at a quiet charity event. No photographers, no eyes, just a conversation between 2 women navigating lives not fully their own. Diana had touched Kate's hand and said, "This world will ask you to perform strength. One day I hope you'll wear it." At the time, Kate hadn't understood. But now, with the pearls suddenly in her hands, the meaning was heartbreakingly clear. As she sat in that room, her eyes welled not from pride, but from the staggering weight of what had been left for her. The pearls, now imbued with such intimate meaning, didn't feel like a gift. They felt like a torch, a burden she wasn't sure she had earned. William entered quietly, reading the expression on her face before she could speak. He wrapped his arms around her as the silence held them both. Or you," he whispered, long before the world did. But even with his comfort, Kate couldn't help but ask herself, was it right to wear them? Or should they remain hidden, sacred, untouched by the growing storm they were now part of? She thought of Meghan then, not with scorn but with unease. She could already feel the comparisons stirring the press, pitting Diana's classic pearls against Meghan's California diamonds, symbolism twisted into spectacle. And Kate, never one to chase conflict, found herself in the center of one. The pearls weren't just jewels anymore. They were an unspoken verdict, and whether she wore them or not, the message had already been sent. But while Kate quietly grieves and reflects, Meghan is preparing to fight. In a flurry of midnight phone calls and closed-door meetings, Meghan demands answers. Why wasn't she told? Why did Harry hide this? And why, after all her sacrifices, was she still treated as an outsider in Diana's legacy? The revelation of Diana's letter didn't just leave Meghan hurt. It left her enraged. The calm that once defined her public presence now cracked under the weight of a secret kept too long. What began as silent contemplation quickly turned into action. Within hours of Harry's confession, Meghan was on the phone with her legal team, demanding a rights inquiry into the entire royal jewellery archive. Her question was simple: did she, as the Duchess of Sussex, have any legal claim to Diana's personal belongings? But beneath the surface of contracts and technicalities lay a more devastating truth. Meghan felt robbed. Not of pearls, but of dignity. She believed she had been deliberately sidelined, denied the symbolic inheritance that could have tied her to Diana in the eyes of history. The feelings weren't new. They had been simmering for years since that infamous tiara debacle before her wedding. The memory still burned. She had asked for a particular piece, only to be told it wasn't available. Then came whispers, the ones she was never meant to hear. That's not for her. At the time, she chalked it up to protocol. But now, with the pearl revelation exploding in the tabloids and echoing through Montecito's quiet walls, it all seemed premeditated. The firm, in Meghan's eyes, had orchestrated her exclusion from the beginning. And Harry, by staying silent all this time, had become complicit. Fury turned to strategy. Meghan, surrounded by advisors, floated the idea of going public. Not with gossip, but with a sharp, precise statement. One that would question the royal family's transparency, raise legal concerns about Diana's estate, and frame the suppression of the letter as an act of institutional erasure. The goal was not to claim the pearls, but to expose the control and coldness that had, in Meghan's view, always hovered beneath the royal smile. Yet as discussions escalated behind closed doors, Harry pleaded for restraint. He knew where this could lead. A direct confrontation with his brother, a media war, a new fracture no one could ever repair. Still, Meghan couldn't ignore the betrayal. She had endured tabloid crucifixion, public abandonment, and family estrangement. She had given up her homeland, her peace, and her title. And now, to find that she had also been written out of the only woman's story she had ever longed to connect with it, was unforgivable. The calls continued. The pressure mounted. Statements were drafted. Allies were contacted. Meghan was no longer seeking understanding, she was preparing for confrontation. Yet, as Meghan prepares to speak out, someone unexpected decides to intervene. Prince William rarely breaks protocol, but when Meghan's legal team reaches out, he responds personally. Calm, clipped and cold, the pearls were never up for debate. In that moment, a royal bee. Rotherhood fractures perhaps forever. The request came in the form of a formal inquiry, a statement cloaked in legal niceties. But the message was unmistakable. Meghan wanted clarity, documentation, and above all, access. What she received instead was a chilling response that came not from aides, not from secretaries, but from William himself. With deliberate precision, he issued his stance. The pearls were never up for debate. No warmth, no apology, just finality. In that moment, whatever remained of the fragile bridge between brothers began to burn. William had been watching from a distance, aware of the headlines, bracing for the backlash. But when Meghan's intentions crossed the threshold into legal territory, he took it as a personal affront, not just to the family, but to the memory of their mother. He reached out to Harry directly and without pretense, in a conversation described by insiders as terse and emotionally cold. William's words were unflinching. Mum's wishes were clear, he told his brother. We protect them, not politicize them. Harry tried to explain how Meghan felt betrayed, how the silence around the letter had become too loud to ignore. But William saw only one thing: a challenge to Diana's legacy turned into a media circus. That same week, William brought the matter to King Charles. With decades of scandals behind them, the last thing the monarchy could afford was another internal war spilling into public view. Charles, deeply shaken by the potential fallout, authorized a new layer of security protocols around royal heirlooms. Access was tightened, inventory lists vanished from circulation. Even senior family members were asked to formally log and justify requests. To the outside world, it looked like damage control, but within palace walls, it felt like a lockdown. Meanwhile, Kate remained silent, watching it all unfold from the margins. He hadn't worn the pearls. Not yet. The necklace sat nestled in its case, untouched, but it no longer felt like a treasure. It felt like a weapon, one she never asked to wield. Her name now sat at the center of a transatlantic power struggle. Her composure tested in private, as William's fury grew colder, sharper. She had always known her path would be paved with scrutiny. But never had she imagined that Diana's final gift would ignite such chaos. And as Meghan prepared her next move, weighing whether to escalate or retreat, An unlikely figure emerged from the shadows, one who had kept her silence for decades, but now saw the family spiraling toward collapse. But just as the situation threatens to implode, an unexpected ally offers Meghan a lifeline. She's the royal family's iron spine, and now Princess Anne is done watching the next generation tear itself apart. With her legendary stoicism, Anne pulls back the curtain on Diana's real intentions, and the truth is far more complex than anyone imagined. As the royal household braced for yet another media eruption, it was Princess Anne who stepped forward, not with a press release or a grand declaration, but with a sharp, private word to those who mattered most. For years she had maintained her silence, her loyalty to the crown absolute. But this time, the silence was becoming poison, the narrative spiraling in every direction, turning Diana's name into a weapon. Enough was enough. In a private family council, Anne dropped a revelation that instantly shattered assumptions and reframed the entire drama. She had been the one entrusted with safeguarding Diana's vault. Not the archivists, not Charles, her. And she had honored that trust with a ferocity known only to those who understood the cost of keeping royal blood from boiling over. But it didn't end there. Anne continued, measured but unmistakably firm. Diana hadn't written just one letter. She had written several, each addressed to a different future, a different outcome, each one conditional. In one, the pearls were marked for Catherine. In another, a sapphire pendant was noted for the woman who embraces freedom beyond the crown, a line many now believe was written with Meghan in mind, years before her name ever entered royal headlines. But Diana, ever the realist, had also left instructions that the secondary jewels were only to be bestowed if the recipient remained inside the royal fold. Meghan's departure, whether a stand of strength or an escape, had changed the trajectory. The implications hit like thunder. Meghan, who had braced herself for more rejection, now stood before a new, crueler truth, not that she was forgotten, but that she was once chosen and later removed. Vindication tasted bitter. And when Anne turned her gaze on both brothers, her criticism cut deep. "You've both weaponized her memory," she said. "This is not about what she wanted, it's about what you want her to have said." Her voice carried the weight of decades spent in shadow, doing the unglamorous work of holding a crumbling monarchy together. To her, the pearls weren't the issue. The fracture was. For the first time, silence fell over the room. Meghan didn't speak. Harry looked away. William, uncharacteristically still, offered no reply. Anne had given them something no royal ever dared to offer: unfiltered truth. And with it, the illusion of moral high ground collapsed. The war wasn't about pearls, it never was. It was about belonging, betrayal, and the slow erosion of trust beneath the surface of titles and crowns. But Anne's intervention, powerful as it was, could only do so much. And yet, amid the chaos, one quiet move changes everything and stuns the world. Under the blinding lights of a United Nations gala, Catherine of Wales steps out in a sleek black gown. Around her neck glistens the unmistakable pearl, set Diana's final gift. The room gasps. Cameras flash. Meghan watches from afar. The moment was as choreographed as it was seismic. In a room filled with global leaders and dignitaries, where speeches were meant to transcend politics and legacy, it was a necklace, ancient, soft, powerful, that stole the narrative. Catherine's presence had always been dignified, but tonight it carried something more. She wasn't just a royal figure gracing an international stage. She was now the visible bearer of Diana's legacy, the chosen one. Her keynote address on maternal health was overshadowed within minutes by the shimmer around her collarbone. Those pearls, last seen in decades-old photographs, were suddenly everywhere again, magnified, dissected, and interpreted. It wasn't just jewelry, it was judgment. It was inheritance. And it was unmistakably intentional. What made the moment even more deafening was the absence of the Sussexes. Harry and Meghan had reportedly received an invitation to the same gala, one extended to them through their philanthropic work in Africa, but they declined. No statement, no appearance, just silence. A silence that now screamed across social media and international headlines. Was it avoidance, or had they seen it coming? The timing of Kate's choice was impossible to ignore. Within hours, royal correspondents were furiously debating whether this was a respectful tribute or a pointed gesture cloaked in elegance. Some called it a symbol of Diana's enduring love. Others whispered that it was nothing short of a public checkmate. Back in California, Meghan broke her own silence, but not with a press conference or formal comment. Just a single Instagram story. A muted photo of her garden, accompanied by a quote, "Not all gifts are blessings." The message, though cryptic, needed no decoding. Her grief, her disappointment, her fury. They were all there between the words. It wasn't jealousy that consumed her, but the gnawing realization that the monarchy had chosen its narrative, and she wasn't part of it. The woman who had once been seen as the modern embodiment of Diana's rebellious grace was now watching from the margins as another stepped fully into the light. What followed was a media frenzy. Commentators dissected every inch of Kate's look, every word of her speech, every movement caught on camera. They speculated about internal timing, about whether William had known, whether Anne had approved. Some said it was the perfect royal moment. Others warned it was the beginning of another firestorm. But what no one saw coming was what unfolded after the gala, far from the spotlight, in a quiet room where 4 people gathered for a conversation that would alter the course of everything. Because behind all the glitz, a quiet meeting takes place, and not everyone leaves satisfied. In a tearful confrontation inside their Montecito estate, Meghan gives Harry an ultimatum. Either he defends her legacy or he remains shackled to the monarchy's ghosts. What Harry says next leaves Meghan speechless and alone. The pearls had become more than pearls. They were now the embodiment of everything Meghan had feared since stepping into the royal spotlight, being compared, being dismissed, being erased. She stood before Harry with the weight of years behind her, trembling not from rage but from despair. "I've been haunted by Diana," she confessed, voice breaking but never embraced by her memory. "It's as if she loved everyone but me." The words hung heavy between them. She didn't blame Diana, not truly. But the legacy left behind had wrapped itself around Harry like a second skin, and no matter how far they moved from the crown, she could still feel its grip pulling him back. Meghan's pain erupted into one final desperate plea. She told Harry he had to make a choice, issue a statement, publicly challenge the narrative, or reject the pearls altogether. Not for the sake of optics, but for what it would symbolize. That she mattered too. That Diana's love could stretch beyond tradition. That Meghan wasn't just a footnote in the royal epic, but someone worthy of standing beside the memory of the most beloved woman in modern royal history. Her voice rose, not with anger, but with sorrow. "They still own you," she said. "Not your title, not your choices, your guilt." Harry didn't answer right away. He stared at the floor, shoulders heavy, eyes hollowed out by exhaustion. He had tried to protect her from the ghosts. He had tried to walk away. But some ties don't sever, they bury deeper. When he finally spoke, it wasn't with defiance or apology. It was with resignation. "I can't erase her wishes," he said, "not even for you." The silence that followed was absolute. No rebuttal, no outburst. Meghan simply turned, walked away, and later that night she left for Los Angeles. Officially, it was for reflection time. Privately, the rift had widened to a chasm. The press didn't miss a beat. Rumors exploded overnight of strained values, of ideological separation, of the undeniable question: had Harry and Meghan, once the defiant architects of a new royal future, finally reached the point of divergence? The contrast between them had never been starker. Meghan fighting for autonomy. Harry clinging to fragments of a mother he still mourned. It wasn't betrayal, it was heartbreak born from 2 different griefs. Khalidi. End. Under one roof. And yet, through it all, the pearls remained untouched, their silence now echoing louder than any statement. But just when the saga seems to end in sorrow, a final discovery shifts everything again. Tucked inside an overlooked envelope, a final note from Diana emerges, to be opened only if conflict arises. Its message? Not about pearls, titles, or revenge, but healing. Will anyone listen? or is the damage already too deep to undo? It was the most unassuming discovery in a storm of revelations. Behind Diana's old vanity, sealed between the mirror and the frame, archivists stumbled upon what they first believed to be a misfiled greeting card. But the seal was intact and the handwriting unmistakable. For the future, if conflict arises, Diana had scrawled in bold ink. The letter was dated only days before her death. Its contents were unlike anything the palace had released before, not legal instruction, not emotional nostalgia, but a plea, a desperate, almost prophetic call for unity. She wrote not of property or preference, but of peace. The pearls, she penned with finality, symbolize peace, not power. They are meant to soften, never divide. She addressed the note not to any specific name, but to the women who will love my sons. It was both a blessing and a warning. The letter sent tremors through the palace, not because it answered questions, but because it rendered them meaningless. Diana had seen the potential for fracture even before it began. She had feared that her memory would be twisted into a weapon. Now, with the Pearl saga tearing open old wounds, her voice returned to the very stage she once fled. For days, the family deliberated how to handle the revelation. Ultimately, it was Harry who insisted Kate read it first. That gesture alone broke months of tension. The two met in private, no aides, no cameras. What passed between them, Rayma. Ins sealed by discretion, but insiders described the encounter as deeply emotional, with Kate moved to tears and Harry visibly shaken. The note was then scanned and sent to Meghan, accompanied by a personal message from the archivist, not the Crown. She read it, but made no public comment. Not a single post, no statement, just silence. But those closest to her say she held on to it longer than anyone expected. She carried it around the Montecito property for days, not as a sign of surrender, but of grief. Because while the world argued over symbolism, she had only ever wanted to be seen. And here, in the final moments of Diana's life, there was finally room for everyone, if only too late. And so the pearls were returned to the drawer, not as a concession, but as a pause. They remained glimmering in silence, untouched, unsullied, a relic of the woman who, even in death, had tried to write a better ending for those she loved. Diana's legacy, it turns out, was never meant to crown anyone, it was meant to connect. But whether her final words would truly mend what had broken remains to be seen. In a monarchy built on tradition, even love becomes a battlefield. And sometimes, the heaviest jewels are the ones we never expected to carry. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.